The morning I walked into the kitchen to find my parents casually handing my sister Tiffany the keys to my brand new sedan was the moment everything changed. 3 years of saving every penny, working overtime at a job I hated, all for my first real adult purchase. But in my family, what was mine had always been considered communal property. What my parents and golden child sister didn't know was that I'd been planning for this moment for weeks. The car they thought was mine? Legally, it wasn't anymore. Growing up as Johnny Walker in suburban Ohio meant constantly living in the shadow of my younger sister. I'm 32 now, working as an IT specialist at a mid-sized company, but the family dynamics established in childhood never truly faded away. Our middle-class neighborhood in Fairfield was filled with perfectly manicured lawns and people who cared more about appearances than reality. My parents, Martha and Frank Walker, were no exception. From the moment Tiffany was born when I was 7, the pattern was established. My toys became her toys. My achievements became footnotes. Her minor accomplishments were celebrated like Olympic victories. I still remember my 10th birthday, when I received a Nintendo gaming system I'd been dreaming about for months. 3 days later, Tiffany wanted to play with it. When I protested, my mother gave me that look that communicated everything without words. Don't be selfish. Share with your sister. The system ended up permanently in her room within a week. This pattern continued through our school years. When I made honor roll consistently, my parents would nod and say, "That's what we expect from you, Johnny." When Tiffany managed to get a B- after nearly failing, they took her out for ice cream to celebrate her improvement. My high school graduation party was a small backyard affair with close family. Tiffany's graduation 3 years later was a catered event with 50 guests and professional photography. The most painful memory came during my college years. I had received a partial scholarship to Ohio State, but still needed to rely on the college fund my parents and grandparents had built for me since birth. Midway through my sophomore year, I discovered that nearly $12,000 had been withdrawn from the account. When confronted, my parents explained that Tiffany needed the money for a spring break trip to Cancun with her friends. It was important for her social development, my father explained. "You've always been independent, Johnny. We knew you'd understand." I had to take out additional student loans and work 30 hours a week at a local restaurant to make up the difference. I still graduated with honors, but the betrayal left a permanent mark. After college, I moved back home temporarily to save money while starting my career. The housing market and student loan payments made independence financially challenging. What was supposed to be 6 months turned into nearly 3 years of living under my parents' roof, witnessing firsthand how Tiffany continued to be enabled at every turn. During those 3 years, Tiffany managed to total 3 different cars. The first was a fender bender that turned into a total loss because she hit a luxury vehicle. Insurance covered most of it, but my parents paid the deductible without complaint. The second accident occurred when she was texting while driving and rear-ended someone at a stoplight. The third happened after a night of drinking with friends, when she swerved off the road into a ditch. Miraculously, she avoided DUI charges, and once again, my parents replaced her vehicle without any meaningful consequences. "She's still finding herself," my mother would say. "These are just life lessons everyone has to learn." Meanwhile, I drove the same used Honda Civic I'd purchased for $2,000 during college. It had nearly 200,000 miles on it. The air conditioning had stopped working 3 summers ago, and the check engine light was a permanent fixture on my dashboard. But it was reliable enough to get me to work, and more importantly, it was mine. Last year, I finally found a therapist who helped me understand what had been happening all along. Dr. Melissa Barnes introduced me to terms like golden child syndrome and family scapegoat. She helped me see that by always being the responsible one, I had enabled my own mistreatment. More importantly, she taught me how to start building healthy boundaries. The first boundary was financial. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and stopped discussing my savings with family members. The second boundary involved my time and energy. I declined family events that felt obligatory rather than enjoyable. The third boundary involved my possessions. I started keeping my bedroom door locked and invested in a small safe for important documents. For 3 years, I saved diligently. I brought lunch to work instead of eating out. I picked up freelance IT projects on weekends. I declined vacations with friends to put that money toward my goal. Finally, 3 months ago, I had enough saved for a down payment on a brand new Honda Accord sedan in steel blue metallic. It was nothing flashy or extravagant, but it represented years of discipline and sacrifice. The day I drove it home, my father glanced at it and said, "Nice car. Probably could have gotten a better deal if you'd waited for the end-of-month sales." My mother added, "It's very practical." That same evening, they threw an impromptu celebration when Tiffany announced she'd managed to keep her retail job for 3 consecutive months. I might have continued accepting this treatment indefinitely if not for what happened next. Last week, I ran into Sam Peterson, whose parents lived down the street from us. He mentioned seeing Tiffany at a bar downtown the previous weekend. She was telling everyone about the road trip she's planning to the Firefly Music Festival in Delaware, Sam said. Said she'd be driving her brother's brand new car. Pretty cool of you to let her borrow it for a 600-mile round trip. I hadn't heard anything about a music festival or a road trip, and I certainly hadn't agreed to let anyone drive my new car. When I casually asked Tiffany about her weekend plans over dinner that night, she vaguely mentioned hanging out with friends and quickly changed the subject. That's when I knew something had to change. The years of having my boundaries violated had taught me one important lesson. In my family, asking for respect never worked. I needed to protect myself proactively instead. And that's exactly what I was planning to do when I walked into our kitchen that morning and saw my parents casually handing my car keys to Tiffany. My mother noticed me standing in the doorway and had the audacity to smile. "Oh good, you're up," she said. "Tiffany has a job interview across town. We told her she could take your car, since it makes a better impression than her old Corolla." They hadn't asked. They hadn't even considered asking. My property, my achievement, my years of sacrifice meant nothing. But what they didn't know was that I had already set a plan in motion that would change our family dynamic forever. The night after Sam told me about Tiffany's planned road trip in my car, I called my best friend, Alicia Morgan. We'd been friends since freshman year of college, and she now worked as a paralegal at a law firm that specialized in property rights. If anyone would understand my situation and have practical advice, it would be Alicia. "They've been doing this your entire life, and they're not going to stop," she said after I explained the situation. "You need to protect yourself legally." "What do you mean, legally?" "It's my car. I paid for it. My name is on the title. And that means nothing if you continue to live under their roof where they have access to your keys, your documents, everything," Alicia replied. "Johnny, I see cases like this at the firm all the time. Family members who feel entitled to someone else's property often take it, damage it, and face zero consequences because we're family and it was just a misunderstanding. So what am I supposed to do? Move out immediately? I'm still saving for a down payment on a house. There might be another option. Let me talk to Derek and see what he thinks." Derek was Alicia's boyfriend who worked sales at a local car dealership. The next evening, the three of us met at a coffee shop far from my neighborhood to discuss options. "You could temporarily transfer ownership of the vehicle to someone you trust," Derek explained. "It's not uncommon. People do it to avoid certain taxes or when they're going through complex financial situations." "Is that even legal?" I asked. "Completely legal if done properly," Alicia confirmed. "It's essentially selling the car to someone else with a private agreement to transfer it back later. The key is documentation and making sure everything is filed correctly with the DMV. And who exactly would I transfer ownership to? I can't exactly trust my family at this point." Alicia and Derek exchanged glances. "What about me?" Alicia suggested. "I understand the situation. I have no interest in actually taking your car, and I know enough about the legal process to make sure everything is done correctly." Over the next week, Alicia and I meticulously planned everything. We created a bill of sale for $1, transferring ownership of my Honda Accord to her. We visited a notary public to make everything official. We filled out title transfer paperwork and submitted it to the DMV. On paper, my car now belonged to Alicia Morgan, though I would continue to drive it, maintain it, and make the payments. We also adjusted the insurance policy to list her as the primary owner and me as the primary driver. Derek helped us understand all the technical aspects of the transfer, making sure we hadn't missed any details that could create problems later. Throughout this process, I experienced a roller coaster of emotions. Part of me felt guilty for going to such extreme lengths to protect myself from my own family. Another part felt sad that my relationship with them had deteriorated to this point. But mostly, I felt angry that I needed to create this elaborate safeguard in the first place. "You shouldn't have to do this," Dr. Barnes said during our weekly therapy session. "In healthy families, boundaries are respected without these measures. But given your family's history, this is a form of self-care. You're protecting yourself from people who have repeatedly shown they don't respect your property or autonomy." The title transfer would take several weeks to process completely, so I implemented additional security measures in the meantime. I purchased a steering wheel lock that required a key. I installed a hidden GPS tracker in the vehicle that connected to an app on my phone. Most importantly, I installed a small, discreet camera system that activated whenever the car was started without my key fob in proximity. These precautions felt extreme, even paranoid, but they gave me peace of mind. If Tiffany was truly planning to take my car on a multi-state road trip without permission, I would have evidence and the ability to track the vehicle's location. I kept the arrangement entirely secret from my family. As far as they knew, nothing had changed. I continued driving my car to work each day, continued making the payments from my personal account, and continued caring for it meticulously. The only physical evidence of the change was the new registration and title documents, which I kept in Alicia's apartment rather than at home. One evening, about 2 weeks after initiating the ownership transfer, I returned from work earlier than usual and caught Tiffany in our driveway, peering through the windows of my car. She jumped when she noticed me approaching. "Just admiring it," she said with a shrug. "It's so much nicer than my car." "Thanks," I replied neutrally. "It took a lot of saving to afford it." "Must be nice to have a job that pays well enough to save," she said with a hint of resentment, as if her retail salary was somehow my fault. That night, I installed a small motion-activated camera in my bedroom, aimed at my dresser where I kept my car keys. Call it intuition or pattern recognition from years of boundary violations. But something told me I needed to be prepared for what might happen next. My intuition proved correct, sooner than I expected. 3 days later, I checked the camera footage on my phone during lunch break at work. The night before, while I was showering, my parents and Tiffany had entered my room. The footage clearly showed them searching through my dresser drawers, with my mother eventually holding up my car keys triumphantly. "He'll never notice if we make a copy," she said. "Then Tiffany can borrow it whenever she needs to, without having to ask every time. He's so uptight about his things," my father added. "He needs to learn to share. We're family, after all." "The festival is going to be amazing," Tiffany squealed. "And showing up in a brand new car instead of my beater? Everyone will be so impressed." I felt sick to my stomach watching this footage. The casual dismissal of my property rights. The entitlement. The blatant disrespect for my privacy and boundaries. But more than anything, I felt validated in my decision to legally transfer the car out of my name. Something told me I would be grateful for that decision very soon. After discovering the footage of my family planning to copy my car keys, I knew I needed to accelerate my protection plan. That evening after work, I stopped by a hardware store and purchased key blanks that matched my Honda key but wouldn't actually work in the ignition. I swapped these dummy keys for my real ones in the usual spot in my dresser drawer. The real keys went into a small lockbox, hidden in the back of my closet, behind winter clothing. Next, I removed the registration and insurance documents from the glove compartment, replacing them with photocopies that still showed my name rather than Alicia's. The originals went into the same lockbox as the keys. These measures would buy me time if they attempted to take my car, but I knew I needed to create a paper trail as well. That night, I sent a group text to my parents and Tiffany. Just a friendly reminder that no one should be driving my new car without explicit permission from me. The insurance only covers designated drivers, and I'm still making payments on it. Thanks for understanding. My mother replied almost immediately. No one is trying to take your car, Johnny. No need to be so possessive about things. My father added, we raised you to share with family. Disappointed you've become so materialistic. Tiffany didn't respond at all. The following evening, we had our usual family dinner. My mother made her special lasagna, which typically signaled that someone had news to share or a favor to ask. Halfway through the meal, Tiffany cleared her throat dramatically. "So, I have exciting news," she announced. "My friends and I are going to the Firefly Music Festival next weekend. Tons of amazing bands are playing." "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart," my mother beamed. "You deserve some fun after working so hard at your job." I waited for the inevitable mention of transportation, but it never came. Instead, my father turned to me and said, "Johnny, your sister will need a reliable vehicle for her trip. That old Toyota of hers probably won't make the journey. She should look into rental cars," I suggested mildly. "They have weekend specials sometimes." My mother's smile tightened. "Rental cars are so expensive, and they require a credit card with a high limit. Your car would be perfect for her trip." "I'm not comfortable with anyone taking my new car on a 600-mile road trip," I stated firmly. "It's still breaking in, and I need it for work." "You could take my car to work," my father suggested. "It's just sitting in the driveway most days anyway." "That's not the point," I replied. "It's my car, purchased with my money, and I get to decide who drives it and where." Tiffany rolled her eyes dramatically. "God, Johnny, when did you become such a control freak?" "It's just a car. A car that I spent 3 years saving for," I reminded her. "A car that I'm still making payments on. A car that I'm responsible for. A car that I'm responsible for." The rest of dinner passed in tense silence. Later that evening, I heard my parents and Tiffany whispering intensely in the living room, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I checked that my room's hidden camera was still functioning properly and went to bed early, claiming a headache. The next few days passed without incident. I continued going to work, and Tiffany continued her usual routine of late mornings and afternoon shifts at the clothing store in the mall. My parents were suspiciously nice to me, offering to cook my favorite meals and asking about my day with unusual interest. Their sudden kindness made me more vigilant, not less. I checked my room's camera footage daily and confirmed that someone was entering my room at least once a day, presumably looking for the real keys after discovering the fakes didn't work. On Thursday, I decided to set a more deliberate trap. I left a post-it note on my dresser with "spare key" in bathroom medicine cabinet written on it. Then I placed another dummy key in an envelope in the medicine cabinet with "spare car key" written on it. A third hidden camera confirmed that both my mother and Tiffany checked the medicine cabinet that evening while I was out for dinner with Alicia. The weekend of the music festival arrived. Friday morning, I left for work as usual, but texted my boss that I wasn't feeling well and would be working remotely for the rest of the day. Instead of going to the office, I went to Alicia's apartment and set up my laptop there. I wanted to be ready to respond immediately if anything happened with my car. Around 11 in the morning, the GPS tracker on my phone alerted me that my car was moving. I checked the camera footage and saw Tiffany behind the wheel, looking triumphant. Somehow, she had found the real keys. I immediately called her cell phone. No answer. I called 3 more times in rapid succession. Still, no answer. I texted her. "I see you've taken my car. Without permission. Pull over and call me immediately." No response. I called my parents' house phone. My mother answered on the second ring. "Is something wrong, Johnny? Aren't you at work?" "Tiffany has taken my car without permission," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She isn't answering her phone." "Oh, she mentioned she needed to run a quick errand," my mother said dismissively. "I'm sure she'll be back soon." "A quick errand?" "Mom, according to the GPS, she's already 70 miles away and heading east toward Delaware." "She's going to that music festival, isn't she?" A pause. "Well, her plans with friends might have moved up. I don't keep track of her schedule." "This is theft, Mom. I explicitly said no one was to drive my car without permission." "Don't be so dramatic, Johnny. It's just a car, and she's family. She'll take good care of it." "I'm coming home now," I said, ending the call before I said something I would regret. When I arrived at the house 20 minutes later, I found a hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter. "Borrowed your car for a quick errand. Back soon. Tiff." Except, according to the GPS tracker, she was now 90 miles away and still heading east. I went to my room and found clear evidence of another search. Drawers left partially open, closet doors ajar. They had been thorough this time, and had somehow found my lockbox. The spare key was gone. I called Alicia immediately. "It's happening. Tiffany took my car and is heading to that festival." "Are you sure it's her?" Alicia asked. "Positive. The car camera shows her driving. She left a note claiming it's a quick errand, but she's almost to the state line. Document everything," Alicia advised. "Take photos of the note, save the GPS data, and keep trying to contact her to establish that she took it without permission." I continued calling Tiffany every 15 minutes. Each call went straight to voicemail. I sent texts clearly stating that she did not have permission to take my car and demanding she return it immediately. I took photos of my searched room and the note she left. Around noon, I received a text from Tiffany. "Chill out. Just borrowing it for the weekend. We'll fill the tank before I bring it back." I replied immediately, "This is not okay. You do not have permission to take my car. Return it now or I will report it stolen." "Whatever. No one reports family to the police. Stop being such a baby." I forwarded all these exchanges to Alicia, who confirmed I was creating the necessary paper trail in case things escalated further. Meanwhile, I continued tracking the car's progress on the GPS app. By 4 in the afternoon, the car had stopped moving. According to the map, it was now at a gas station just outside Wilmington, Delaware, about 15 miles from the festival grounds. I was preparing to call the local police to report the vehicle as taken without authorization when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Johnny Walker?" a male voice asked when I answered. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Ted from Wilmington Gas and Go. There's been an accident involving a blue Honda Accord registered to you. The driver asked me to call you." My heart sank. "Is anyone hurt?" "No injuries, but the car." "Well, you should probably come see for yourself." I grabbed my wallet and keys to my parents' second car, then headed back to Alicia's apartment. Together, we began the 4-hour drive to Delaware, with my stomach twisting in knots the entire way. The sun was setting by the time Alicia and I pulled into the Wilmington Gas and Go parking lot. From a distance, I couldn't see my car anywhere, and briefly hoped there had been some mistake. Then we drove around to the back of the station, and my heart plummeted. My beautiful steel blue Honda Accord, with less than 3,000 miles on it, was wrapped around a guardrail at the edge of the property. The entire front end was crushed. Both airbags had deployed. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks. Pieces of headlight and bumper were scattered across the pavement. For a moment, I couldn't speak. 3 years of sacrifices, of bringing lunch to work instead of eating out, of declining vacations with friends, of working weekends and holidays for extra money, all destroyed in an instant. "Oh, Johnny," Alicia whispered beside me, "I'm so sorry." I spotted Tiffany sitting on a bench near the gas station convenience store, laughing with 3 other young women. She had a beer can poorly disguised in a paper bag in her hand. She looked completely unharmed and unbothered by the destruction she had caused. A middle-aged man in a gas and go uniform approached us as we parked. "Are you Johnny?" "I'm Ted," we spoke on the phone. I nodded, still struggling to find words. "I've called a tow truck," he said. "Should be here any minute. State trooper's on his way too, to file the accident report." "What happened?" I finally managed to ask. From what I saw, the young lady came off the highway too fast, missed the turn into the gas station, and hit the guardrail. Lucky it was there, honestly, or she'd have gone down the embankment. I walked over to Tiffany and her friends. They fell silent as I approached, exchanging glances. "Hey, Johnny," Tiffany said casually. "Thanks for coming to pick me up." "Pick you up?" "Tiffany, you stole my car and wrecked it." She rolled her eyes. "I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. And accidents happen. You took it without permission after I explicitly told you not to. That's theft." One of Tiffany's friends snickered. Another one stood up. "We're going to head to the festival." "See you there later, Tiff?" "Yeah, save me a spot," Tiffany replied, as if this were just a minor inconvenience in her day rather than a life-altering disaster. As her friends walked to another car parked nearby, I noticed they were all carrying beer cans similar to Tiffany's. "Have you been drinking?" I demanded. "Just a couple beers," she shrugged. No big deal. No big deal? You were drinking and driving my car? Do you have any idea how serious this is? Stop being so dramatic. It wasn't that bad. I stared at her in disbelief. Not that bad? The car is totaled. It's just cosmetic damage, she insisted, taking another sip from her disguised beer. Insurance will cover it. That's what it's for, right? Before I could respond, a state police cruiser pulled into the gas station, lights flashing but siren off. A trooper in his 40s stepped out and surveyed the scene, his expression grim. "Who was driving the Accord?" he called out. Tiffany raised her hand casually, then quickly lowered it when she realized who was asking. The trooper approached her, immediately noticing the paper bag. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to set that down and show me some identification." "I'm 25, she protested. "I'm legal." "Identification, please," he repeated firmly. As Tiffany dug through her purse for her wallet, the trooper turned to me. "You the owner of the vehicle?" "Yes, sir," I replied. "Well, technically." I glanced at Alicia, unsure how to explain our arrangement. "We have documentation," Alicia said smoothly. "But there's something you should know first. The driver took this vehicle without the owner's permission." The trooper's eyebrows raised. "Is that so?" He turned back to Tiffany, who had produced her driver's license. "Ma'am, did you have permission to drive this vehicle?" "Of course," Tiffany said quickly. "He's my brother. We share everything." "That's not true," I interjected. I explicitly told her she could not take my car. I have text messages proving it. The trooper took Tiffany's license and examined it. "I'm going to need you to perform a few tests for me, Miss Walker. Please step over here." While the trooper conducted a field sobriety test with Tiffany, another vehicle pulled into the gas station. My parents' SUV. Someone must have called them too. My father burst out of the driver's side door before the vehicle had fully stopped. "What happened? Is everyone okay?" "Tiffany's fine," I said flatly. "My car isn't." My mother rushed past me toward Tiffany, who was now walking a straight line under the trooper's watchful eye. "What are they doing to her? Why is that officer questioning my daughter?" "Because she took my car without permission, drove it across state lines, was drinking while driving, and then crashed it," I explained. My father surveyed the wreckage and winced. "That's unfortunate. But the important thing is no one was hurt. Cars can be replaced." "With what?" I demanded. 3 years of my life that I spent saving for it? My mother returned from her attempt to interrupt the sobriety test, which the trooper had firmly prevented. "Johnny, you're being selfish right now. Your sister is clearly shaken up. She was just trying to have a nice weekend with her friends. She was trying to impress people by showing up in a car she didn't own and couldn't afford," I corrected. "Exactly," my mother said, missing the point entirely. "She was trying to impress people. What's wrong with that? You could have helped your sister make a good impression, but instead you're making a scene." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My car was destroyed. Tiffany had stolen it and driven under the influence, and somehow I was the one being unreasonable? The trooper finished the field sobriety test and approached us with a grim expression. "Miss Walker has failed the preliminary breath test. I'll need to take her in for a formal breathalyzer at the station." "This is ridiculous," my father protested. "It was just a minor accident. We can handle this as a family." "There's more than property damage involved here, sir," the trooper explained. "Driving under the influence is a serious offense. Officer—" My mother stepped forward with her most charming smile. "Surely we can work something out. Our daughter is a good girl who made a small mistake. Ma'am, I don't work things out when it comes to DUI. Now, about the vehicle ownership and authorization to drive." My father turned to me. "Johnny, tell the officer Tiffany had permission to use your car so we can handle the rest of this privately." They were still trying to manipulate the situation, still trying to protect Tiffany from consequences, still treating my loss as insignificant. Something inside me snapped. "Actually," I said clearly, "there's something everyone should know. That car isn't registered to me anymore." My parents stared at me in confusion. The trooper looked up from his notepad. "Good thing it's not my car anymore," I continued. "I legally signed it over to someone else weeks ago, anticipating something exactly like this might happen." "What are you talking about?" my father demanded. Alicia stepped forward. "The Honda Accord is registered to me, officer. I have the title and registration right here." And no, Tiffany Walker did not have permission to drive my vehicle. In fact, she took it without my knowledge or consent. The color drained from my parents' faces as they realized the implications. The trooper examined the documents Alicia presented, confirming her as the legal owner. In that case, he said, in addition to the DUI charge, we're looking at unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. That's a serious offense, folks. As the trooper led Tiffany toward his cruiser to transport her to the station, the reality of the situation finally seemed to dawn on her. Her casual attitude vanished, replaced by panic. "Johnny," she called out, "tell them this is just a misunderstanding. Tell them you let me borrow it." But I remained silent, watching as the consequences she had avoided her entire life finally caught up to her. The state trooper's cruiser pulled away with Tiffany in the back seat, leaving me facing my parents in the gas station parking lot. The tow truck had arrived and was working to disentangle the Honda from the guardrail. Each screech of metal made me wince. "What have you done?" my father demanded once the police car was out of sight. "Your sister could go to jail because of your little ownership trick." "My sister could go to jail because she stole a car and drove it while intoxicated," I corrected him. "The ownership trick, as you call it, was just protecting myself from exactly this scenario." My mother was openly crying now. "I don't understand, Johnny. Why would you transfer ownership of your car to someone else? Were you planning to hurt your sister all along?" "I wasn't planning to hurt anyone. I was planning to protect myself after discovering that Tiffany intended to take my car without permission for a music festival. Something she had done numerous times before with family possessions. So you set her up," my father accused, his face reddening. "No, I created a consequence for her actions, something you two have failed to do her entire life." Alicia, who had been giving us space for this family confrontation, approached cautiously. "Mr. and Mrs. Walker, I understand this is upsetting, but Johnny didn't cause this situation. Your daughter chose to take a vehicle that wasn't hers, drive it across state lines without permission, consume alcohol, and then operate the vehicle under the influence. Those were all her choices." My father turned his anger toward her. "And who are you to insert yourself into our family matters? This is between us and our children. She's the legal owner of the vehicle your daughter stole and wrecked," I pointed out. "That makes her very much involved." "This is insane," my mother said, wiping away tears. "We raised you better than this, Johnny. Family helps family. Family doesn't set traps for each other." "You raised me to be a doormat," I replied, surprised by my own calmness. "You raised me to accept that my things would be taken, my boundaries would be violated, and my feelings didn't matter if they conflicted with what Tiffany wanted." "That's not true," my mother protested. "Isn't it? When was the last time you stood up for me when Tiffany took something of mine? When was the last time you punished her for disrespecting my property? When was the last time you put my needs on equal footing with hers?" My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances but didn't answer. "You can't think of a single example, can you?" I pressed. "We love both our children equally," my father insisted. "Love isn't measured by words, Dad. It's measured by actions. And your actions have consistently shown that Tiffany's wants outweigh my needs." The tow truck operator approached us. "Vehicle's secured. Where am I taking it?" Alicia provided him with the address of her insurance company's preferred repair shop. We all watched in silence as the mangled remains of the Honda Accord were towed away. "So what happens now?" my mother finally asked in a small voice. "Now we go to the police station," I replied. "Tiffany will be processed for DUI and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. You'll probably need to contact a lawyer." "And you're just going to let this happen to your sister?" my father demanded incredulously. "I'm not letting anything happen. These are the natural consequences of her actions." "We'll tell them you gave her permission," my father threatened. "It will be our word against yours." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I have text messages explicitly telling her she did not have permission to take the car. I have a hidden camera video showing her taking the keys from my room without permission. And I have multiple witnesses who heard me state that no one was allowed to drive my car without explicit consent." My father's face flushed with anger. "You've been planning this. Recording your own family, setting up your sister for criminal charges." "Frank," my mother said quietly, putting a hand on his arm, "this isn't helping. A small crowd had gathered at the gas station, watching our family drama unfold with undisguised interest. Several were recording with their phones. My father noticed and lowered his voice. "Johnny, please. She's your sister. She made a mistake. Don't ruin her life over a car." "This isn't about the car," I replied. "This is about 29 years of enabling behavior that has created a person who believes rules don't apply to her. Who thinks she can take whatever she wants without consequences? Who drives under the influence without concern for others on the road?" "She's young," my mother pleaded. "She's still learning." "She's 25, Mom. She's an adult who needs to face adult consequences." My father changed tactics. "What do you want, Johnny? Money? We'll pay for the car. We'll buy you a new one. Just tell the police." There was a misunderstanding about permission. "I don't want your money. I want Tiffany to finally experience consequences for her actions. I want you both to stop enabling behavior that will eventually get her or someone else killed." "You've always been jealous of the attention we gave her," my father accused. "This is just revenge." "Think what you want," I said, suddenly exhausted by the circular conversation. "We need to go to the police station." As we prepared to leave, Ted, the gas station attendant, approached me. "Almost forgot. The security cameras caught the whole accident. Thought you might want a copy for insurance purposes." "That would be very helpful, thank you," Alicia replied. "And there's something else," Ted added. "Right before the crash, I saw the young lady on her phone, texting or something. Nearly drove straight through the intersection before swerving at the last minute." My parents' faces fell further at this new information. Distracted driving while intoxicated made the situation even worse. "There's more," I said, steeling myself for their reaction. "When I realized Tiffany might take my car without permission, I installed a hidden camera system that activates when the vehicle is started. It records both inside and outside the car." "You what?" my mother gasped. "I have video footage of everything. Tiffany explicitly stating to her friends that she took the car without permission. Tiffany consuming alcohol while driving. Tiffany texting right before the crash." My father's anger seemed to deflate, replaced by genuine fear for his daughter's future. "Johnny, please. If there's footage like that and the police see it, the consequences will be severe," I finished for him. "As they should be for someone who made those choices." "She could lose her license," my mother whispered. "She could go to jail." "Yes," I agreed. "And maybe that's what she needs to finally understand, that her actions affect others." As we walked to our vehicles to follow the police cruiser to the station, my father made one last desperate attempt. "If you do this, you're not welcome in this family anymore. You understand that, right?" This is an unforgivable betrayal. I stopped and turned to face them both. For 29 years, I've been part of a family that didn't respect my boundaries, my property, or my feelings. I've been the responsible one, the one who sacrificed, the one who was expected to give way whenever Tiffany wanted something. If that's your definition of family, maybe I'm better off without it. With those words, I turned and walked away from them, feeling simultaneously hollow and liberated. As painful as this confrontation had been, it felt like the first honest conversation we'd had in years. The Wilmington police station was a flurry of activity when we arrived. My parents insisted on riding with me and Alicia rather than taking their own vehicle, perhaps hoping to continue trying to persuade me during the journey. They had remained largely silent during the drive, occasionally whispering to each other but avoiding direct conversation with me. Inside the station, we were directed to a waiting area while Tiffany was being processed. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across my parents' worried faces. My mother continuously dabbed at her eyes with a tissue while my father paced back and forth, checking his watch every few minutes as if time might somehow speed up and extract us from this nightmare. After nearly an hour, a detective approached us. "I'm Detective Wilson. I understand you're here about Tiffany Walker?" My father stepped forward immediately. "Yes, our daughter. This has all been a huge misunderstanding." "Actually," Alicia interrupted, extending her hand professionally. "I'm Alicia Morgan, the registered owner of the vehicle involved in today's incident. This is Johnny Walker, who was the previous owner and my authorized driver." The detective's eyebrows raised slightly. "I see. And you are?" he asked, turning to my parents. Frank and Martha Walker. Tiffany's parents, my father replied stiffly. Well, this is a complicated situation, Detective Wilson said. Miss Walker is currently facing charges of driving under the influence, unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, texting while driving, and property damage. What happens next? I asked. She'll have a bail hearing tomorrow morning. Until then, she'll remain in custody. My mother gasped. She has to stay here overnight? In jail? Standard procedure for DUI cases, ma'am. My father put his arm around my mother. Is there any way? Could we perhaps pay the bail now and take her home? It doesn't work that way, sir. The judge sets bail at the hearing. As the reality of the situation sank in, my father's desperation grew visible. He pulled me aside while the detective continued explaining procedures to Alicia and my mother. Johnny, you have to fix this, he hissed. Tell them you gave her permission to use the car. Tell them there's been a mistake with the ownership records. Something, anything. I can't lie to the police, Dad. And even if I did, there's still the DUI charge. She was driving under the influence. That has nothing to do with ownership or permission. We'll deal with the DUI. It's her first offense. But this car theft business could ruin her record permanently. It's not theft if I say it was unauthorized use, I explained. Theft implies an intent to permanently deprive the owner of property. Unauthorized use is taking it without permission but with the intent to return it. It's still serious, but not as severe. How do you even know these distinctions? He demanded suspiciously. Because unlike Tiffany, I research the potential consequences of my actions before I take them. Our tense conversation was interrupted by Detective Wilson. Mr. Walker, we need a statement from you regarding the vehicle and whether Miss Walker had permission to use it. I glanced at my father, whose eyes pleaded with me. Then, at my mother, who looked physically ill with worry. For a moment, I wavered. Would it really be so terrible to say Tiffany had permission to help my sister avoid the most serious charges? Then I remembered all the times she had taken my things without asking. All the times she had damaged or destroyed my possessions with no consequences. All the times my parents had dismissed my feelings and concerns as unimportant compared to Tiffany's wants and needs. I'll provide a complete and truthful statement, I told the detective. In a private interview room, I explained everything. How Tiffany had a history of taking my belongings without permission. How I'd discovered she was planning to use my car for a music festival without asking. How I'd explicitly told her and my parents that no one was to drive my car without my consent. How I had transferred ownership to Alicia as a protective measure. How Tiffany had taken the car anyway, driven while drinking, and ultimately crashed it. I provided copies of the text messages between us, clearly showing I had not given permission. I explained about the car's camera system and offered to provide the footage. I even mentioned the security footage from the gas station showing the actual crash. When I emerged from the interview room, my parents were waiting with a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Gerald Bennett, a criminal defense attorney they had called during my interview. We need to talk privately, Bennett said, ushering us all into an empty conference room the police had provided. Once the door closed, he turned to me. I understand you have video evidence that could be damaging to your sister's case. I have video evidence of what actually happened, I corrected. Yes, well, as her family, I'm sure you want what's best for Tiffany. The police haven't requested this footage yet, and you're not obligated to volunteer it. Are you suggesting I withhold evidence? I asked. I'm suggesting you consider what's truly in your sister's best interest before potentially creating a situation that could affect her for the rest of her life. My father nodded vigorously. Listen to Mr. Bennett, Johnny. He knows what he's talking about. Alicia, who had been silently observing, finally spoke up. As the legal owner of the damaged vehicle, I have every right to provide evidence relating to how that damage occurred. The insurance company will require it anyway. Young lady, Bennett began condescendingly, family matters should be handled within the family. This stopped being just a family matter when Tiffany chose to take a vehicle registered to me without permission, Alicia replied coolly. Now it's a legal matter involving insurance claims, property damage, and potential criminal charges. My mother, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly burst into tears. How did we get here? How did our family fall apart like this? It's Johnny's fault, my father insisted. If he hadn't transferred the car to trick Tiffany— Stop, I interrupted firmly. This isn't about the car transfer. This is about Tiffany taking something that wasn't hers, driving under the influence, and crashing it. Those were her choices. The only thing the ownership transfer did was protect me financially from those choices. Bennett cleared his throat. Regardless of how we got here, we need to focus on minimizing the damage moving forward. Mr. Walker, would you be willing to tell the prosecutor that while Tiffany didn't have explicit permission to use the vehicle, you had a family understanding that she could use it occasionally? No, I said simply, because that would be a lie. There was no such understanding. In fact, I explicitly stated multiple times that no one was to drive my car without specific permission. Johnny, please, my mother begged. Tiffany's life is at stake here. Her life isn't at stake, Mom. Her comfort is. Her convenience is. Her ability to continue avoiding consequences is. And I'm not willing to lie to protect those things anymore. Bennett sighed. Well, without your cooperation, we'll have to work with what we have. The DUI is problematic, but as a first offense, we might be able to get it reduced. The unauthorized use charge is more serious given the circumstances, but we'll do what we can. As Bennett gathered his notes and prepared to leave, a police officer knocked and entered the conference room. Miss Morgan? We need a statement from you, as the vehicle owner. Alicia nodded and followed the officer out. My parents watched her go with barely concealed hostility. I hope you're happy, my father said bitterly once we were alone. You've turned your back on your family and sided with an outsider. Alicia has shown me more respect and understanding in our friendship than my family has in 29 years, I replied. And she's not the one who taught Tiffany that she could take whatever she wanted without consequences. We never taught her that, my mother protested. You absolutely did. Every time you let her take my things without asking. Every time you replaced something she destroyed without making her work to pay for it. Every time you dismissed my feelings as less important than hers. You taught her that rules don't apply to her. My father stood up abruptly. I've heard enough. We're going to focus on helping your sister now. You've made your position clear. Yes, I have, I agreed quietly. For once in my life, I've made my position clear and stood by it, instead of giving in to keep the peace. They left the conference room without another word, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Despite the guilt and doubt creeping at the edges of my mind, I felt strangely at peace. For the first time, I had stood up for myself without backing down, without compromising my boundaries to make others comfortable. Alicia returned about 20 minutes later. The police have everything they need from us for now, she said. They'll contact us if they need anything else. Your parents are arranging for Tiffany's bail hearing tomorrow. Thank you, I said sincerely. For everything. I know this has put you in an awkward position. That's what friends are for, she replied with a small smile. Standing by you when things get awkward. As we prepared to leave the police station, Detective Wilson approached us one last time. Just wanted to let you know. We've reviewed the gas station security footage. It clearly shows Miss Walker texting immediately before the crash and the impact with the guardrail. Combined with the blood alcohol test results, it's fairly damning evidence. What kind of penalties might she face? I asked, a twinge of concern for my sister despite everything. For a first-time offender? Probably license suspension. Significant fines. Possibly mandated alcohol education programs. The unauthorized use charge could potentially add community service or probation. Jail time is unlikely for a first offense without injuries, but it depends on the judge. As we walked out of the station into the cool evening air, I spotted my parents sitting in their SUV in the parking lot. They didn't wave or acknowledge us. The physical distance between us now matched the emotional chasm that had been growing for years. Do you want to stay at my place tonight? Alicia offered. I don't think going back to your parents' house is the best idea right now. That would be great, I agreed, realizing I had nowhere else to go. The house I'd lived in with my parents suddenly felt like forbidden territory. Everything had changed in a single day, and there was no going back. As we drove away from the police station, I received a text from my father. Your mother and I are deeply disappointed in your choices today. Until you make this right with your sister, don't bother coming home. I stared at the message for a long moment before turning off my phone. The family dynamics that had constrained me for nearly 3 decades were finally being broken, for better or worse. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in my life, it would be one I chose for myself. 1 year later, I adjusted my tie in the mirror of my new apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a quiet complex across town from my parents' home. The past year had been transformative in ways I never could have imagined when I installed that hidden camera in my car 12 months ago. Ready? Alicia called from the living room. We should leave in about 15 minutes to make it on time. Almost, I replied, smoothing down my shirt one last time. Today marked an important milestone. Tiffany's completion of her court-mandated community service and alcohol education program. The family had agreed to meet for dinner afterward, the first time all 4 of us would be together since that fateful day at the Wilmington police station. The legal aftermath of Tiffany's actions had been significant but ultimately merciful. She had received a 1-year license suspension, substantial fines, 25 hours of community service at a rehabilitation center for accident victims, and mandatory participation in an alcohol education program. The unauthorized use charge had resulted in additional community service hours, but no jail time, largely due to her lack of prior criminal record. My parents had initially remained furious with me, refusing contact for nearly 2 months after the incident. During that time, I had moved in with Alicia temporarily before finding my own apartment. I had used the insurance settlement from the car, which Alicia had immediately transferred to me to purchase a used Toyota Camry. Nothing fancy, but reliable transportation that was fully mine. The first crack in my parents' wall of silence came in the form of a text message from my mother 3 months after the incident. Tiffany started her community service at the rehab center today. She met a 19-year-old who will never walk again because someone was texting and driving. I hadn't responded immediately, unsure what she wanted from me. 2 days later, she sent another message. She cried the entire way home. Said she never realized she could have killed someone. That was the beginning of a slow, cautious reconciliation. My mother reached out periodically with updates about Tiffany's community service and the impact it was having on her. My father remained distant, but eventually began including brief messages in my mother's texts. Dad says hello. Evolved into Dad wants to know how your new job is going, and eventually direct messages from his own phone. Tiffany's transformation had been the most surprising. Her initial anger and blame had shifted dramatically after her first few weeks working at the rehabilitation center. She began to understand the potential consequences of her reckless behavior in a way that no lecture or punishment from our parents had ever achieved. 5 months after the accident, I received a handwritten letter from her. Johnny, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. Not just for taking your car, but for years of taking your things, disrespecting your boundaries, and never considering your feelings. Working with people whose lives were destroyed in seconds by someone's bad decision has forced me to see myself clearly for the first time. I was selfish, entitled, and careless. I could have killed someone. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me. But I want you to know that I understand now why you did what you did. And you were right. I needed to face real consequences before I would change. Tiffany. That letter had been the turning point in our relationship. We began texting occasionally, then talking on the phone. 6 months ago, we met for coffee, our first face-to-face conversation since the accident. It had been awkward but healing. As for my parents, they had been forced to examine their own role in creating the family dynamic that led to the crisis. Family therapy had been suggested by the court, and though initially resistant, they had eventually agreed to attend. Those sessions had been painful but necessary, peeling back decades of patterns and expectations that had damaged all of us in different ways. My relationship with Alicia had evolved too. What began as friendship had deepened through the crisis into something more. She had been my rock when my family collapsed, my advocate when I doubted myself, and eventually, my partner in building a new life. We had been dating for 7 months now, taking things slowly and thoughtfully. Earth to Johnny, Alicia said, appearing in the bedroom doorway. "You're staring at your reflection like it might have the answers to the universe." I smiled at her, just thinking about how much has changed in a year. "Nervous about tonight?" "A little," I admitted. "It's the first time we'll all be together since everything happened. And the first time you'll meet my parents as my girlfriend rather than just the person who owned my car." "We'll get through it together," she assured me. "Remember what Dr. Harmon said in your last therapy session? New patterns, new boundaries, new relationships." Dr. Harmon had been my therapist throughout this journey, helping me navigate the complex emotions of standing up to my family while still leaving room for healing and reconciliation. Her guidance had been invaluable in helping me maintain healthy boundaries without completely severing ties. We arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early and requested a quiet table in the corner. My parents and Tiffany arrived together exactly on time. There was a moment of awkward hesitation before my mother stepped forward and hugged me. "It's good to see you, Johnny," she said sincerely. My father extended his hand for a somewhat formal handshake. "You look well," he offered, which was high praise from him. Tiffany hung back slightly, uncertainty written across her face. She had changed physically in the past year. Her previously highlighted hair was now its natural brown. Her clothing, more subdued than the flashy styles she had once favored. But the most significant change was in her expression. The entitled confidence had been replaced by something more thoughtful and humble. "Hi, Johnny," she said quietly. "Thanks for coming." "Congratulations on completing your program," I replied genuinely. I introduced Alicia as my girlfriend, watching carefully as my parents processed this information. My mother smiled warmly while my father offered another handshake. They had met her before, of course, but the context had been very different. Dinner began with careful small talk, the weather, my new job as a senior IT specialist at a different company, my father's upcoming retirement. Gradually, the conversation grew more natural. My mother asked Alicia about her work at the law firm. My father discussed the home renovations they were planning. Tiffany shared that she had enrolled in community college courses, focusing on social work. "The people I met at the rehab center," she explained. "They changed how I see everything. I want to help others the way the social workers there help them." "That's wonderful, Tiff," I said, genuinely proud of her new direction. As dessert arrived, my father cleared his throat. "I think there are some things that need to be said explicitly," he began. "Things we've discussed separately but never all together." My mother nodded in agreement. "We've done a lot of work in therapy this year. Frank and I have had to confront some difficult truths about our parenting. We failed both of you in different ways," my father continued, surprising me with his directness. "We enabled Tiffany's worst behaviors, while simultaneously placing unfair expectations on you, Johnny. We confused loving our children with giving them what they wanted," my mother added. "For Tiffany, that meant material things and freedom from consequences. For you, Johnny, it meant expecting you to always be the responsible one, the one who would give in and keep the peace. I don't think we realized how damaging that was to both of you," my father said. "To your relationship with each other and to your individual development." I was stunned by their candor. In all our careful reconciliation over the past year, they had never been this forthright about their role in our family dysfunction. "I had a lot of anger toward you at first, Johnny," Tiffany admitted. "I blamed you for the legal trouble, for the community service, for everything. But working with accident victims, seeing the consequences of choices like the ones I made, it changed me. And our family therapy sessions helped me understand that my behavior didn't happen in a vacuum. It was encouraged and enabled for years. We all played our parts," I acknowledged. "I enabled it too, by never standing firm on boundaries, by always giving in to keep the peace. Until you didn't," my father said with a hint of newfound respect. "Until you protected yourself in a way we should have been protecting both of you all along." "We're still learning," my mother said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "We're trying to do better, to be better parents to adult children who deserve our respect and support." The conversation continued long after our dessert plates were cleared, each of us sharing perspectives and experiences from the past year of growth and change. There were tears, particularly when Tiffany described some of the accident victims she had worked with and how their stories had affected her. There was laughter too, cautious at first, but growing more genuine as the evening progressed. As we prepared to leave the restaurant, Tiffany pulled me aside. "I have something for you," she said, handing me a small envelope. Inside was a check for several $1,000s. "What's this?" I asked. "I've been saving from my paychecks," she explained. "It's not enough to replace the car you lost, but it's a start. I want to make amends, not just with words, but with actions." I was deeply touched by the gesture. "Thank you. This means a lot. I'm going to keep paying you back," she promised. "No matter how long it takes." "The money isn't what matters most," I told her. "The respect and understanding behind it is what's important." We hugged for the first time in years, a real embrace. Not the awkward side hug we had exchanged at family gatherings in the past. Outside the restaurant, my parents surprised me with another announcement. "We've been thinking," my father said. "The house is too big for just the two of us now. We're considering downsizing and using some of the equity to help both of you with your future plans." "No strings attached," my mother added quickly. "No expectations or conditions, just support for whatever paths you choose." It was a remarkable shift from the parents who had tried to manipulate and control the situation a year ago. The transformation in all of us was still ongoing, still imperfect, but undeniably real. As Alicia and I drove home, she smiled at me. "That went better than expected." "Much better," I agreed. "It feels like, not a fresh start exactly, but maybe a new chapter, one where we all understand each other better." "Your family has come a long way," she observed. "All of you have. We had to break before we could rebuild," I said. As painful as that day was, I think it needed to happen. That night, as I prepared for bed in my own apartment, paid for with my own money, decorated to my own taste, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The car that had represented such an important achievement to me was long gone, but what I had gained instead was far more valuable: self-respect, healthy boundaries, and a family that was slowly learning to operate with genuine care rather than obligation and enabling. I had learned that sometimes protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes consequences aren't cruel, they're clarifying. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop sheltering them from the results of their own choices. The road to healing wasn't complete. There would still be awkward moments, old patterns that tried to reassert themselves, new boundaries to establish and maintain. But for the first time in my life, I felt confident in my ability to navigate those challenges without losing myself in the process. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? If this story resonated with you, share your experiences in the comments. Sometimes, standing firm is the most loving thing we can do, both for ourselves and others. Don't forget to like this video if it spoke to you. Subscribe for more stories about family dynamics and personal growth. And share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect yourself. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it brings you clarity and courage in your own.